Hey everybody, it's John Sullivan, and I'm back with another edition of the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. You may also know me as Buffalo66, or you may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em. And you can also check out our podcast on Twitter at BLNowPod, or visit our website, blnowpod.com. And got a lot to talk about in a little bit of time. Really pressed for time this week, but with all the daily fantasy news that's happened in the last few days, I feel like I have to talk about that. Wasn't my original plan for this podcast, but what I'm going to start by doing what I do every week and review my bets from the last week, and that's going to take a couple of minutes. So if you don't care about that, you can forward through to when I start talking about the daily fantasy. Anyway, I had my best week of the football season by far. Had a winning week in every discipline, and I'm going to go through the bets really quickly here. And I start with last Thursday, and I had the over 43.5 on the Steelers-Ravens game. And if you watched that game, it ended up going to overtime, and Josh Scobie missed a bunch of kicks. And I also had somewhat of a middle on that game. I had Pittsburgh +4 and -3.5, also Pittsburgh -3.5. And they had a chance to go up by 6 late in the game that would have won both sides of that. It's technically, it's not officially a middle, but I'm calling it a middle. And then the game went to overtime, so I still had a chance to win everything. I still had a chance to win the over and both sides of the Pittsburgh bet that I had. And Baltimore won by 3. I missed my over by a half a point, and I arbitraged that middle, so I made a profit on the middle, but I lost that over. And then on Friday, college football, I had Memphis -7, and that pushed. That was a little disappointing. I did get the best number there. Saturday, I had 3 college plays, and I did pay a little extra juice, but I got the best number on every one of them. TCU -13.5. They were up 30-0 after the first quarter. They rolled. I had Kansas State, Oklahoma State over 48.5. And it was 48 at halftime, so that was an easy over for us. And then late in the evening, I had Oregon -6. And that went swimmingly. I think it was 41-24 or 41-27, not sure which, but it was comfortable margin. And also on Saturday, I had a CFL play of Winnipeg over 45. Winnipeg Edmonton over 45.5. Got the best number there. Won that on the last play of the game as Winnipeg kicked a field goal to win. However, Edmonton kicked a field goal to win. Winnipeg's kicker missed 4 field goals and 1 extra point in that game, and none of them were blocked. They were all strictly straight-up misses. So that was a real sweat, and CFL is so much fun. I love betting CFL. It's just a fun game to watch. But that one was kind of a hair-pulling experience. I thought it was going to be a bad beat, but it came through for us. And in the long run, you pull out games maybe you shouldn't have, and you lose games maybe you should have won. But in the long run, it all works out. And then on Sunday, my primary play was Denver over 41.5, and we got there. I got the best number on that. And then I did another pseudo middle on the Bears. They announced Cutler was coming back, so I did the same thing with the Bears. I took them +4, and I also took the Bears -3.5. And I didn't win. I had a chance to win both sides again, but they only won by 2. But I arbitraged that situation, so I made a profit, even though I only won 1/2 of that. So overall, it was a great week. I'm winning. I'm 1-0 in CFL for the month. I'm winning in NFL overall. I'm winning in CFL overall, and I'm 9-1 in college. I got out of the hole in college, and I'm drinking a little juice there, but I'm right about even. So just wanted to point out that the NFL, because it has such great liquidity, so many people bet on the NFL, it allows for what they call alternate spreads and middle and reverse middle opportunities. You can buy the over/under if the Vegas line or the consensus line, we'll use, I shouldn't use Vegas, is say 43 on a football game. Well, you can buy over 49 or under 49. You can buy over 35 or under 35 on that same game if you look around, because so many people bet NFL that they offer all these alternate lines. Usually look under the prop section if you're using an online sports book, or they have a section called alternate high, alternate low, and you can get a point spread. And that can give you a lot of opportunities to make a double wager where you'll get a point spread or a varied point spread or a middle or reverse middle, where, like, say you could have, if the game falls between a team winning by 3 and a team winning by 7, you can win 2 bets instead of 1. Anyway, I wanted to spend more of my episode on things like that, but another thing I wanted to point out is, I talked about the CFL game already, but the Thursday night game and then the Monday night football game between Seattle and Detroit, to me, they missed that fumble at the goal line, and then the batted ball out of bounds that the referees missed in the Seattle game. What a great example of variance in sports betting. That wasn't the only review in the Seattle game. That Seattle touchdown, that I think it was Curse that caught it. It looked to me like that ball hit the ground. But there were 2 huge reviews, that and then the fumble crossing the goal line by Calvin Johnson. Those reviews had direct effect on the outcome of the game, both against the spread and the money line. Really didn't affect the total. The game was going under anyway, but it shows to me, and the point I want to get across about all of this, it shows how inconsequential the outcome of one sports bet is in the whole scheme of things. You shouldn't ever, I've talked about this in some of my videos, you should never bet the farm on one bet. I mean, there's bets you have extreme confidence in, and you might wager more. At the most, I would double up from my 1 unit to 2 units. Or if you bet 2% of your bankroll, maybe bet 3 or 4% of your bankroll, but never go higher than that. The variance is high enough in any. It doesn't matter whether you're betting a minus 1,000 favorite on the money line. It could happen. The variance is high. It's a great. The ball bounces funny. The puck bounces funny sometimes. And it's a great example of variance in sports betting. You should just take it one bet at a time. You just, when you review your bet, you don't have to be results oriented. You just say, hey, did I get my money in good? Did I get a good number? Did I handicap this game, or did I handicap the market correctly? So we can talk more about that at a later time. And on to the news of the day. Originally, I meant to talk about advanced betting techniques, but the DFS issues, the daily fantasy sports issues in the news are just too much to ignore. In last episode, I talked about the last podcast, I talked about the need for regulation, and basically what's happened, it's pretty much come to light how shady, how poor the internal controls are at the big contest sites for daily fantasy sports. And I'm talking about DraftKings and FanDuel, if you don't know or don't follow. And, before I get into specifics of the controversy, regardless of the facts, any sniff of impropriety can bring down these large companies to a much less significant players in the industry. Now, these companies have a lot of investor money behind them from a lot of big companies, from owners of NFL teams. But they're not public entities yet. The people that founded these companies have not hit their huge payday yet. They need to take these companies public or sell them in order to secure their personal fortune. So this is a big deal for the people that run these companies. But it's the public perception, the people say the optics, or a more old school term is the smell test, is not very good right now. So getting into the specifics of exactly what set this all off, Ethan Haskell, who works at DraftKings, tweeted information about ownership percentages for a football contest that he shouldn't have had at that early point in the day. Now, the DraftKings claims he didn't do anything wrong, but what the snowball effect of all of this is it brought allegations from insiders in the industry and from the general public that there's a possibility of insider info advantages of these people having insider knowledge of the inner workings of the contest at DraftKings and FanDuel, and them using it to their advantage. Now, Ethan also won that same weekend. He came in second in a $1 Million Maker tournament on FanDuel, and he won $350,000. I'm not saying he cheated. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm not accusing him of any wrongdoing. However, what has been brought to light is the possibility of insider info advantages, and examples of that are knowing live ownership percentages of large field tournaments, seeing lineups submitted by the most profitable players at DraftKings, because that's where he works, or the possibility to change somebody's lineup after the contest lock. Nobody knows what types of internal controls are in place to prevent this. We just have to take DraftKings' word that no shenanigans or shady business dealings were going on. And again, no concrete proof of anything. This is really more of a what-if scenario. And the problem is, mainstream media ran with this information, and it created a crisis of confidence within the industry. And not just between the players and the game operators, it created a crisis of confidence between the investors in these companies and how the companies are being run. And, the term that was used was insider trading allegations. And again, no concrete proof of wrongdoing. On the same vein, there hasn't been really anything forthcoming about transparency on the internal controls of these sites. DraftKings and FanDuel have released a bunch of statements, and they've been very vague. And the only concrete thing they've done is say that their employees can no longer play daily fantasy anywhere. It used to just be they couldn't play at their home site. So the mainstream media ran with this information, created a crisis of confidence, and now it seems like regulation is at hand for the industry. The state's attorney generals are getting involved. And as far as regulation goes, basically, at this point, anybody in the industry, whether they work for a contest site or they work for one of the ancillary supporting sites like Roto Grinders or any of the tout sites, anybody that isn't welcoming regulation at this point is being disingenuous. And the reason behind that is likely losing some profitability angle or edge, and probably due to some advantage they had regarding some advantage they had that the public didn't have. And whether it's unethical, immoral, illegal, nobody knows. But if you're not saying, hey, we need regulation, we need transparency, and we need it now, you're being disingenuous, and you've got other motives going on. Because how could anybody that's good at DFS and is on the up and up not want a fair, equitable, and transparent game for everybody? Why would you kill the golden goose? There's absolutely, it's an indefensible argument. If anybody says, well, it's a witch hunt, that doesn't matter whether it's a witch hunt or not. Going forward, do you want fantasy sports to exist? Yes or no? Yes, I do. Going forward, do you want daily fantasy sports to grow? Yes or no? Yes, I do. Well, then you want transparency. Then you want regulation. Arguing anything different is at this point is absolutely indefensible. And also, as far as specific allegations, I have a few questions that may or may not ever be answered But these are the things that matter to me as far as what broke this scandal. And the first question is, Jason Robbins was on Fox Business today, and he said Ethan Haskell did absolutely nothing wrong. And if DraftKings supports him 100% and said Ethan Haskell did absolutely nothing wrong, why hasn't Ethan released a statement saying the same thing? I realize it's smart for him to lawyer up and to not say anything. That would be my advice if I was his lawyer, and I'm not a legal expert by any means. But him releasing a written statement saying, I did nothing wrong, and DraftKings also says I did nothing wrong, that is no way that could be incriminating. It would be a first good step for him to come out and help clear this up. And my second point is, Ethan won a bunch of fantasy tournaments in the last couple of months. He had that big football win, and he had 4 or 5 big baseball wins in August. And the ones he didn't win, he had multiple very high-scoring entries. So my second question is, if Ethan is that good at daily fantasy, and there's a possibility that he really is, why doesn't he quit DraftKings and play full-time? It seems to me that it's way more profitable for him to play daily fantasy sports than to stay at DraftKings. Everybody's saying that he's a mid to low-level employee. He's not making a lot of money there. It doesn't seem that it's very fruitful for him to stay with DraftKings for any singular reason. And my third question is, we know that what Ethan's winning football roster was and how well it mimicked DraftKings ownership percentages, and it also mimicked a roster by one of the top players, Max Delury. But has anybody looked into all of his winning Major League rosters in August? And regular DraftKings and FanDuel players will have this information at their fingertips. We can look at Ethan's rosters for pretty much the whole month of August and look at all the Major League rosters he submitted to these contests that he won and these contests that he finished very highly in, and see, if they correlate to DraftKings ownership percentages, like if somebody knew what the low ownership percentages were, and if they correlated to that, or B, if they mimic the most profitable DraftKings users' rosters. If he somehow had access, I'm not saying he did, I'm just speaking in hypotheticals, but if he somehow had access to look at the rosters of top players like the DraftKings pros or Max Delury or any other great baseball DFSers, and he got to look at what their rosters were, what if his FanDuel rosters mimicked those submitted rosters? Somebody has to have this history available to research this matter, and it would ease my mind if they were very different. But there's something in the back of my mind that says we're going to find some similarities. And I hope somebody gets down to the crux of that. I think more will come out over time. But embrace the regulation. I said last podcast, if you listen to episode 6, regulation was really necessary for the industry to grow, and now it's an inevitability. It's going to happen one way or the other. And while we're on the topic of regulation and changing things, please bring back snake drafts. I've mentioned before how much I love snake drafts, and I think they're the most skill-based form of daily fantasy sports. And if these sites are going to take a hit because of this scandal or crisis in confidence, they're going to take a hit on their multi-entry games, and their handle's going to be down. Well, if you bring back snake drafts, I'll start playing again. I wouldn't. You can't multi-entry snake drafts, but I would play every day. I would be playing hundreds to thousands more than I play occasionally now, but I would play almost daily. It would be worth it to me. It would bring me back into the day-to-day grind of the industry, and I don't know if people want that or not. I'm not the most popular guy sometimes. That's all I got to say for today. It's a short podcast, but I got a lot going on here outside of what we talk about in this podcast. So I don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate this week. But if you want to follow my picks, visit my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em. And I also keep my betting records on there. I update them at the end of every month. And again, our podcast Twitter page is at BLNowPod, and the website is blnowpod.com. And thanks for listening. If you're checking me out for the first time, all my episodes are available on SoundCloud and YouTube. And until next time, enjoy the games and bet like no one's watching. Take care, everybody.